Okay, hello everyone and welcome back to Sprocket, and today I'm going to be showing off some new tanks and a new faction that I have started on. This time, instead of Italy, it is France, which is why I'm showing the Model 1 here, which is a base interwar tank which is already given to you as part of the starting tank lineup. It's a basic little French-looking World War I style tank, 37mm gun. A 30mm gun rather, and yeah, you already start off with this one. In the game files for AI tanks that you can fight against in the scenarios, there is this variant of the Model 1, which is the Model 1 anti-tank. Has a little 50mm gun mounted in the hull, and yeah, it's slower, fatter, bigger version of the Model 1. And the other Model 1 variant is the Model 1 Heavy, which is just a heavy tank version of the Model 1. Not really much to say. It's just an elongated version, and it's a World War I tank as well for the World War I scenario. See, 30mm gun still. But yeah, now I'll actually start showing some of the French tanks that I have made, and I'll start off with this, the Char 33T, which is based on the D1/D2 style of tank. So it's got the exposed tracks, it's got the big flat side of the hull there. We've got side exhausts, plenty of vents on it, riveted armour as well. We've got the French roundel on the side back of the turret, and the French flag with some stowage. We've got a 37mm gun, 46.1mm of penetration. This is an interwar tank, 6-litre V6 engine, which gives it average mobility. 3-man crew, plenty of crew space though, which gives us a pretty fast rate of fire here for shooting at whatever we want. If we were to spawn a Model 1 Heavy, for example, we just try and kill it, I guess. There you go, we managed to take it out. Our Char 33T, and we're stuck in a ridge. Yeah, so the French tanks are characterised by being relatively slow but well armoured with smallish guns, and yeah, that's what we have here. 35mm of riveted armour on the front, 30mm on the side of the hull and turret, and 20 on the rears of both. So yeah, this is just your basic D2 style with or D1 style, and then a D2 style with the Char 36T. The numbers are donating the years, so it's a 1933 tank for the Char 33T, and the 36T is a 1936 tank. Basically the same as the 33T, but except instead of riveted armour, it's got regular welded armour. It's also thicker, 45mm on the front, 40mm on the side, 25 on the rears of both the turret and hull. But otherwise, it's generally unchanged. Mobility-wise, it's got a slightly bigger engine, 7.5-litre V6, to account for the extra fuel, for the extra weight that's on there, and it's also twin transmission as well, so you can so it can turn on the spot, as you can see here, instead of having regular clutch braking. It's also got a 47mm gun, where the 33T had a 37mm, so yeah, gained an extra 10mm of gunnage there. And yeah, the 33T also has twin transmission, and all of these tanks are in the French grey, French blue rather, because there's no good, easily placeable French camouflages that I can just put in the game files and have them, cover all of the tank, unfortunately, and also look good. But yeah, still French roundel on the side, French flag on the side as well. Now the Char 35C. Is based on sort of like the FCM 36 and also the MX38 sort of style turret. So it's got a 2.8-litre V4 engine, 40mm of frontal armour on both the turret and hull, 30mm on the side, 20mm on the rear. 3-man crew again, commander doubling as the loader, no radio as well. 1935 year tank. And yeah, 47mm French gun, 51.9mm of penetration, so we can just about get through ourselves. If I was to spawn, for example, a Char 36T, let's try and penetrate him, and we bounce, and he doesn't bounce off of us. We can try an angle, I suppose. Hey, there you go, we managed to get through the turret. So, yeah, we're sort of impenetrable to the well, or rather the Char 36C, Char 36T rather, is impenetrable to us from the front, basically because of that sloping giving in like 60-70mm of armour, but the turrets are not as well armoured, or at least are as well armoured but not as well sloped. But yeah, so this is just a little French sort of copycat style to the FCM 36. And yeah, it's a decent little tank, you know, quite rapid firing, 47mm gun, 50mm of penetration for an interval 47mm, as we died to the explosive barrel. But yeah, so that's the 35C. Now, the next tank I'm going to show is the ALM Char 39H, which is basically my version of the Char B1. I can't put a howitzer in the hull, unfortunately, because I'm not on the experimental branch. If I was, then I'd be able to put a howitzer, 75mm howitzer or something in the hull, but I'm not. So instead, we're sticking with a 47mm in the turret, 50.3mm of penetration, a 5-man crew as well, because we've got a radio operator who is in the hull with the driver. Single mounted light, got plenty of things round all on the commander's cupola. Plenty of stuff on the side. We're going with the World War I tracks because they're the closest we have to the actual Char B1 tracks in the game. But yeah, very slow traversing turret, but very rapid firing, just over a 2-second reload time. And yeah, it was a bit tricky getting this thing to go, but it has worked, and as you can see, it is a big heavy tank. It's also got a lot of armour as well. If we were to spawn a Model 1 AT, for example, let's see how well he does. Bounce straight away off of our turret. There you go, so the Model 1 AT is unable to penetrate us, which is very nice. You know, interwar heavy tank having all of this armour, just look at it failing to penetrate. Oh, shot one of my fuel tanks. How dare he. Let's see if we can't shoot him on the move. Bounces off our side, we hit him. He's broken our track. We're two tanks that can't penetrate each other, apparently. I do not have the penetration to deal with this guy. I can't penetrate his frontal armour, he can't penetrate mine. Just French tank things. Let's try and... No, we can't even get through his side armour. There you go. There we go. So, yeah, it's your standard sort of French heavy tank there. You can see through the side armour. It's just basic riveted panels on the side, which I've overlaid using the game tools to give us the illusion of having a wider tank than it actually is. But yeah, it's got 60mm of frontal armour, 40mm of side, 20mm of rear on both the turret and hull. So plenty of armour. 4.5 litre V6, making it rather slow, in line with being a heavy tank. And yeah, it's probably one of the better French tanks here. Now the next one I'm going to show you is actually going to be this, the RLM 65D, and is the best we can do for a armoured car. There you go. Yeah, it's the best that I can do for an armoured car. You still have to have the tracks, unfortunately. I've made the tracks as thin and all that as possible, and made the wheels as big as I can. But yeah, it's actually turned out quite well as an armoured car. it could look far worse. It's got a little turret on the top. You know, there's the engine in the rear, rear lights as well. Big old armoured wheels. 47mm gun. It's got a 6-litre V6 in it to make it, you know, very fast. 37mm gun rather, with 46.1mm of penetration. But in return for that, because it is such a small vehicle, obviously it has very little armour. 15 mils of frontal armour, 10 side, 10 rear. It's not very well armoured at all. It's 2-man crew. The driver is also the radio operator, and the commander is also the gunner and the loader. Hence why we've got like a 4-second reload time. But that's because we are a small little armoured car. And yeah, it's you know, it's quite fun. It's turned out all right. I wasn't too sure how this was going to go when I started on it, but yeah, I think it's turned out quite well as an armoured car. This is the widest I can make the wheel spacing as well. I sort of can't make these wheels any wider than they are, or any further apart rather than they are, without having an extra wheel in the middle of them. However, it's a decent little armoured car. Yeah, no armour. I've made the suspension rather bouncy to make it feel like it's a wheeled vehicle. And yeah, 14.5 miles an hour, which is not bad. Yeah, like I say, unfortunately about the tracks, but not much I can really do about that. But I've done the best I can. Got a spare wheel on the side, got a log as well, everything that you could need. Big French roundels on the side as well. And yeah, it's an experiment, definitely. I'll try making some more armoured cars. Yeah, it's quite fun to just see this thing rolling around here. And of course clutch braking, because you wouldn't have an armoured car that turns on the spot, so no twin transmission. So clutch braking makes sense. And yes, so that's the RLM-65D. The final tank that I have here is the RLM-35A, based on like the Lorraine 37 and the UE-57, but mostly the Lorraine. So it's a sort of little tankette, but also sort of like a troop carrier, so you can fit like six people in the back. It's got a 25mm French cannon, which is this thing here in the hull. I was going to just leave it with a machine gun, but then that would make it useless in any sort of scenario. But like the Lorraine, I did make it mid-engined, hence why the exhaust is on the side, because that tells the game where the engine is, because that's how that works. Yeah, lots of viewports all around. Front viewport is a 2-man crew, so the commander is also the gunner and the loader. Riveted armour all around, very little armour. We've got the best I could do for French suspension, with sort of like a bar across the middle of it. Spare fuel tank, that's the rear hatch to enter the back, so that sort of swings open just on opening door. There's the lights. Got some crew stowage on the side, and then of course, yeah, French flags. And it's a little tankette. It's not the smallest of tankettes that I've got, that I have made, but it serves its purpose for what I wanted to do with it. And you'll see when I shoot this explosive barrel. There you go. So, yeah, armour 10 mils all around. I haven't changed the armour. It's riveted all around because I put the rivets on. 6-litre V4 engine. And there's that 25mm gun with 37.9mm of penetration, and there's our 2-man crew. But yeah, so what I actually wanted to do with this RLM-35A, if I switch to Italy, because as we know, the Axis repurposed a lot of tanks, and there's the size of the RLM compared to the L4. But yeah, what the Axis did is they repurposed a lot of tanks, they used them. So this is the RLM-35F in Italian service. It's basically just had an Italian flag stuck on it and some Italian camouflage put on it. That's all that's really happened. But yeah, it's unchanged from its base default settings. It's literally just the RLM-35 but in Italian service, because I have built several different variants of this for the Italians, because the Axis, as we know, would change a lot of their captured tanks, especially captured French tanks, into other purposes, namely tank destroyers or artillery. So yeah, this is the base RLM-35 in Italian service, and then we've got a Semovente da RLM-35F, which is a tank destroyer version. I originally wanted this to be an open crewed turret, so with just the thin gun screen and side bits, but unfortunately Sprocket doesn't allow for that stuff yet, and try as I did, I didn't manage to do it. So instead I just sort of elongated the hull to give us a bit of extra space inside, and also to have a place to put the turret, and I just made it a sort of basic box style turret. So it's a 4-man crew now. 2 more guys are in the turret. Actually, all three guys are in the turret. The commander is now the radio operator, and there's a gunner and a loader as well. As you can see from the radio masts, we have a radio now. The Italians have retrofitted a radio into it. Mobility wise, it's still got the same sort of engine, making the same amount of horsepower as well, 112 horsepower. It is an early war tank. I buffed it up because, you know, by the time the Italians got their hands on RLM-35s, it would be mid-war or early war at least. So yeah, buffed it up to early war, which is why the engine is a slightly different amount of literage, but in order to keep the same power. Yeah, so 4-man crew. It's also got a 50mm anti-tank gun, 87.9mm of penetration now, which yeah, is decent enough for an early war tank destroyer. Relatively fast turret traverse as well. As you can see, it's got a about 6 seconds of reload time. We've still got a log on the side. The hull cannon has been replaced with a machine gun now as well, because of course, why would you need 25mm in the hull when you can just have a 50mm in a turret? So yeah, this is our, if we put it against an early war M639. It's the gun depression is the most depressing thing about the gun. As you can see, we're just not depressing this gun at all. Now we try a snapshot on the move, but it didn't work. And he's driven into a trench. Good, that'll allow us to. There you go. Snap a shot off before he can shoot at us. But yeah, so this is a tank destroyer version of a captured French tank in Italian service, because that's just how World War II went, isn't it? That about sums up the Axis powers tanks. So yeah, that's the first one. The next one I've got, well, the final tank for this video, in fact, is the Semovente da RLM-35-105, although it should really be /105. And I tried to make this an artillery tank, which is why, if you look at the ammo here, it's only got armor-piercing high explosive. There is no pure high explosive here, unfortunately. And it doesn't quite work as an artillery piece, because it's armor-piercing high explosive, not pure high explosive, which means that it's still got penetration. It says it's got 108.5mm of penetration. We're still early war as well. It's got an Italian 105mm gun in it. The crew has been buffed up to 5 as well. Or in fact, I think the crew was already 5. Let me double check that actually. No, crew of 4. So yeah, it's been buffed up to a crew of 5. It's still got the same 112 horsepower. The turret, however, has got no armour whatsoever. 5mm all around. It's super not well armoured at all. And yeah, this is meant to be an artillery piece, but Sprocket doesn't really work for having artillery that shoots high in the sky. So that's the furthest our gun elevates, and that's what we get. And we've got the long reload time of an artillery though. There you go, bang. yeah, we've got the reload time of an artillery piece. We've also got the turret traverse of an artillery piece. But yeah, this is an even bigger boxy turret than the Semovente that I showed previously with the 50mm. But yeah, it has got just a massive 105mm gun. Still terrible gun depression because, and also gun depression time. Just look at that. But yeah, it's sort of high explosive, sort of not pure high explosive, and it's also not. It's also doesn't elevate as high as I would want it to. We got, you know, crew space in the back, crew hatch in the back rather. I'll make it actually bigger because it's a bigger tank, a bigger turret. Bam, there you go. But yeah, so that's the final variant of the French tanks that I have. It's an experiment. There's a few experiments here, namely these things, and also the RLM 165D, which is an interesting armoured car. Might try and make some more armoured cars, who knows. But yeah, so there you go, that is the French tech tree, as it were, of all the vehicles that I have so far for the French. With a bunch of experiments, we've got another tankette in the form of the RLM 35, and we even have some captured tanks to boot for the Italians. So yeah, there you go. That is the French. I'll thank you all for watching, and goodbye.